Alright folks, time to sit tight and listen. We're due to arrive in half an hour, and there's a lot to brief. Jepson was shouting from the front of the cabin, bringing all of our attention forward. There's food and water over by the wall. If you're hungry, eat now. I still felt like I was going to puke after waking up from hypersleep, unsure of where I was and groggy as hell. There was no way I was going to eat right now, with everything in me needed just to keep my attention on Jepson. You're all here because your skills earned you a spot. I know the big shots told you that taking this mission is like getting the damn golden ticket to tickle Wonka's balls. I'm going to tell you that they offered that for a reason. Most of you ain't gonna see it. We don't know what the hell we're walking up into here. And for every single one of you to survive, I need you to be on your shit like never before. Jepson was already laying in, spit flying from his lips as he shouted for all of us to hear. I scanned the cabin, counting 10 of us total, all suited up with armaments standing by. Look, I'm not usually one to come out of retirement, but when they approached me a few weeks ago, offering what Jepson said, essentially, I couldn't say no. Sure, I was pretty successful in the freelance market when it comes to security these days, but considering how much shit I have on Uncle Sam, I had figured they would have paid me enough to ensure my silence by now. Guess all it took was the right people needing my skills. Along with these other saps in here, all of us definitely fit a stereotype. Male, older, obvious military background, and a majority of us with scars to show for it. Now I imagine before a few days ago, none of you knew space travel like this existed. Star Trek shit. But that's just the start of what you're going to find. We're currently en route to a space station known as the Stix Outpost. This place is where the elite of the elite live, safe with all their money and away from the troubles and worries back on Earth. Outpost Stix is the size of a small skyscraper and has all the amenities anyone could need to live for hundreds of years. These people are the ones you don't even hear about because they're rich enough to make it happen. Got it? All told, with staff and ancillary engineers for the station, there are around 200 people living in this place. A man leaning against the wall to my right raised his hand up, inquiring. Jepson nodded toward him before he asked his question. All due respect, sir. These people should have some damn fine security up there already with that kind of money. Jepson actually laughed at that, nodding as he did. They sure did. That's why you're getting offered such a stupid fucking reward. As of about 6 months ago, all communication with anyone up there went totally dark. No signs of life since, and no precursor of any kind to tell us what may be happening. They sent one final message before everything went dark, and it means fuck all for all I can figure out. Just one message. Don't acknowledge them. Figure out what that means, and you win the big prize, I guess. So aliens got the rich bastards? Another of the guys said with a laugh, getting a rise out of the rest of us with it. That's the thing, we don't know. A supply ship came up a couple months back for a scheduled delivery. No word from them since. Everything that comes up here ends up going radio silent the moment they step onto that outpost. Jepson mentioned, continuing on. Now, considering our surroundings, we can't go in there with regular munitions. You've been issued a new prototype gun. Shoots out small electric bursts that are enough to paralyze most humans on contact. Use it wisely or... He was cut off by someone from the cockpit, a nervous voice crackling over the loudspeaker.
You guys, might wanna see this. Sorry to interrupt, Jepson. It's important.
Shutters on the window to my right began to open, revealing the empty void separated from us by thick plastic made to withstand a total lack of atmosphere. Far in the distance, the sun was blazing, providing heat and light to an entire solar system. All I could think about was sitting up in a nice cabin back on Earth, wasting away my days in quiet, where all of this could never find me again. Soon, I hope. Breath caught in my throat as the problem quickly floated past our window. A girl, probably no older than 15, floating aimlessly through the cosmos, at the mercy of whatever force pushed her out into the empty cold. Her eyes stared lifelessly ahead, a permanent stare of panic frozen into them by whatever brought her here. Jesus. Alright. Jepson swore. Beyond our ship, In the direction the girl was floating from, a small, sleek-looking structure was floating in orbit. Stix loomed. Not a single sign of life stirring through the massive windows, hiding its inhabitants. Jepsen spoke up once more. All told, we're here to find out what the hell happened, rescue any survivors, and get the hell back home. Understood, folks? Everyone sort of murmured in agreement. All of us still transfixed on the girl floating past us in space. It was so eerie, floating by at a relatively fast speed, yet everything about her was still. Not a single strand of hair waving as she glided by, ghost-like in the raw sunlight filtering by. A shiver ran down my spine before pulling a victory lap and coming back up, making me visibly shake and draw the laughter of the men around me.
There's more.
The voice came over the radio again as the rest of us looked further from the body floating by. Toward Stix, looming in the background. It was hard to distinguish them against the vast darkness of space behind, but eventually, I counted out around 10 or 11 bodies floating through space, all orbiting the Stix like they were waiting to be let in. Well, that's just fucking creepy. A soldier next to me, big guy with some of the worst brown hair dye I've ever seen, was whispering. I grunted in agreement as the pilot began giving us instructions for offboarding. I zoned out, just filing in behind the other guys to exit through the airlock when we connected. The bolt rifle they gave us was light, almost too light. I felt like I was walking into some unknown hell, armed with a damn nerve gun.
Alright, gentlemen.
Jepsen continued again, looking all of us in the eye as he stood in front of the airlock.
If you see anything suspicious, alert the others. Do not react in any way to draw attention. We're not sure what happened up here, but those bodies outside aren't a sign of welcome. Get back here alive.
Sir, the 10 of us said in unison, programming kicking in from the old days. This was nothing like the deserts of the Middle East, thank God. But at this point, a little warm sun would be a blessing. A loud hiss drove me back to the present, the hatch before us opening up to a brightly lit hallway. White paneling almost blinding, the LED lights above flickering off it, and almost immediately giving me a headache from the buzz. Only the first couple of segments of the hall were lit though, with everything beyond it swallowed by darkness the further in it went. All of us took a moment, making peace with whatever we believed in, and stepped in. Don't think I've ever felt a stillness like I do here. Everything was quiet, but not peaceful. There was discord, like when you know that the absence of any sound means trouble, like someone's trying not to get caught doing something bad. My stomach is already turning, knowing we're in way over our heads before we even get 10 feet into this damn place. No choice though, got to keep moving. We keep pace down the hallway, turning on flashlights as the station gives way to darkness. Before long though, we're introduced to a central atrium, like one huge town square practically, that everything branches off from in here. I could see signs for small businesses, restaurants, shopping, another sign that pointed towards a spa area, entertainment, and yet another that had lodging, admin written on it in big letters, each with their own little hallway that split off. Dividing each path was a huge window, floor to ceiling, revealing the full majesty of space in every direction. Jepsen signaled for everyone to fan out, looking for any sign of what could be going on here. It only took moments for everyone to find some sign of violence. Dried, brown blood spatters were all over the place, whether covering windows or decorating furniture around us. The occasional body part was littered on the floor, though not in any discernible shape at this point. The smell was the worst part though, permeating everything like we were in death's shroud. All of us could feel the shadow of the Reaper pressing down from above, telling us there was no way out. Almost gagged when I passed by a couch just to find a body on it, eyes torn from sockets as it lay there, hands still clawing to try and stop seeing whatever was there. A scream came tearing through the entertainment wing, turning all of us to eye sculptures as it pierced our ears. All of us just looked at each other, unsure what to think of the noise. It sounded vaguely female, but the amount of rage and grief that was in it, I've heard that in a few places.
usually surrounded by the sounds of bombs and gunfire, and it's never a good thing. Jepson gave the signal, all of us following him down the entertainment wing at a brisk pace, trying to keep as quiet as possible while still getting there to find any sign of whatever that was. We only got more questions upon reaching the entertainment center though. A door to our right was swinging, open and closed on squeaky hinges. Jepson went to it first, putting a foot in the way before slowly stepping through the door, catching and stepping back as soon as he spotted what was inside. A moment later, I understood why, catching a stench that I had learned all too much about in my time on the front lines. There was death in that room. "Get out! Get out! Get out!" A voice was whispering loudly from behind us. I turned in time to see a younger man, probably in his mid-20s, starting to get louder as he shouts, "You're going to bring them back! They just finally left me alone! Get out!" He was ranting and raving as one of the soldiers began to approach him, raising a hand to try and get him to calm down at least the tiniest bit. All of us gripped our guns a little tighter, as he stopped suddenly, eyes darting between us and something up above, seemingly hidden in the air ducts. "Damned idiots! Bunch of damned idiots! It came back!" Only seconds passed before he was torn apart before our eyes, seemingly from the inside. I saw his jaw pulled down by nothing, ripped right from his skull with tendons tearing as it stretched. Blood spewed as his screams grew louder, making all of us run cold. A couple of guys raised their guns to him, though Jepson held a hand out to stop them. Seconds. While his jaw was being pulled off, he was being stretched in every direction, like some fucked up zombie movie where they just pull at the body until everyone gets their meal, until he was dead. "The hell did that?" a soldier whispered. The rest of us were thinking the same thing. But Jepson made the call then and there to move everyone out, motioning us back to the door we came through, all the way to the center of the station. "There's about 10 bodies right inside that doorway in the same situation," Jepson mentioned as we walked, motioning back to the door that was still swinging ominously. "Anything that can do that is already high on our list of what not to fuck with. But I didn't see anything. Did any of you?" All of us responded with a negative. "Like the wind ripped him to shreds," another guy mumbled. "Looked like ghosts killing him." A man to my right this time. We were passing by a window when one of them stopped, looking outside at the void waiting to swallow us. It's like the darkness outside was waiting for us to slip in, make one wrong move so it could come in to prey. There were more bodies floating around out there, damned to orbit the station forever thanks to whatever threw them out there. The soldier who stopped was staring intently out into the distance, squinting against the dark outside to try for a better look at something. "You guys see those bodies, right?" he mentioned as I almost bumped into him. "That one out there, think it's wearing purple. I saw it wave." "Probably just the wind, dipshit. Let's get out of here." A guy to my left named Stens spat, muscling by. "There's no wind in space, dipshit." Mullins from up ahead, an older, graying man who was missing a couple of fingers. "Come on, kid. Ain't nobody out there gonna wave at you for any good reason." "No, it's waving," the guy at the window continued. He stepped closer to the window, almost pressing his hands against the glass and focusing in on one body in particular, way out in the distance. I followed his line of sight, not quite following for a moment, before movement became obvious. There was a woman out there floating through space, hair splayed out and frozen in the lack of gravity, and she was smiling at us. I could barely tell, but the shadows playing off her face from the distant sun and space debris made it look like a sinister grin. The bigger problem though, as he had noticed, was that it was waving at us. There was nothing out there in the empty to cause her movement. No way in hell that she was still alive out there, only wearing shorts and a t-shirt in the void of infinite space. But her right arm was pivoting at the elbow while her hand flapped crazily, waving right at us. I froze, desperately willing myself to stop seeing it. There was just darkness where her eyes should be, only teeth showing through the sinister grin to give her any defining features. All I could do was back up a step, desperately moving forward without looking back at it, trying to get Jepson to come take a look. "Jepson, "Jepson, there's something out there," I mentioned, pointing back to where the other soldier was still at the window. I saw him raise a hand, feeling my stomach sink as I back away. He starts shouting, "Hey, she's alive! There's someone out there!" He waves back to the woman, motioning at her to come closer. "Hey, can you hear me? We'll get you back in here." From where I am in the hallway, I can see her, right outside the window now. There's no way anything human could close the gap between where she was and right outside that fast, much less while orbiting in space. That was the least concern though, because he's still furiously waving, now banging on the window and shouting at her that we'll get her help. She reaches through the thick glass of the window like there's nothing there, grabbing on tight to him in an embrace. He looks pretty surprised, but only has moments to feel it before she takes hold, pulling him back out through the solid window to be with her. As soon as she was there, she's gone, leaving him partially floating outside the window as the bottom half of his body slides to the ground on our side, severed by the solid wall between. A couple of guys around him start pounding on the window, trying to find a way to get him back in. But it's hopeless. The blood coming from his severed torso is boiling as it hits the vacuum of space, with irreplaceable damage already wreaking havoc on his lungs and inner organs. Every bit of water in his body is boiling into evaporation all at once, with the more exposed organs going quickly first. There's barely time to register the fear in his eyes before they bubble away, sizzling silently in the void as they record their final images into his brain, soon to join them on the outside.
"Stop paying attention to them."
A voice cuts over a loudspeaker above us, giving a heart jolt to everyone after the horror we just witnessed.
"If you acknowledge them, you're going to die."
"And who the hell are you?" Stans started shouting at the ceiling, hefting his gun like he was going to start firing on nothing.
"Someone who survived here longer than you."
The voice answered back.
"Come meet me at admin and I'll tell you what happened. Do not pay them any mind on your way."
It crackled out, leaving us with nothing. The voice was definitely a woman, but other than that, I couldn't place anything. We all stood there for a moment, looking to Jepson since he was the senior officer for the mission. He shook his head, sighing. "I was about to say, we just turn tail and get the hell out of here." He motioned, looking to all of us. "Unfortunately, we were told to rescue any survivors that might be up here, and whoever that was just qualified. We're going to admin. If you're too chicken shit, I ain't gonna blame you, but go back to the ship. Last thing we need is another situation like Gates back there." "Sir," all of us said, some more uncertain than others. I saw 3 of the remaining guys leave, making their way down the long flickering hallway back to the ship. Part of me wanted to do the same, but the other was screaming that I need to find out what the hell I saw. The woman outside the window was. She wasn't alive, that's for damn sure. But how did she do that? It was really like a ghost coming right through the wall of the station. There 1 second, and gone the next. "Rest of you, with me. Remember what the voice said about acknowledging them." He looked each of us in the eyes, one by one, making sure we understood. Our number was down to 6 now, a tight team going forward, and communication would be necessary for survival. Myself, Mullins, Stens, Jepson, and 2 other guys named Front and Pierce. That was it. "If you see one, do not acknowledge. Do not speak of it. We don't know what we're up against, and we're going to survive however we fucking can. Get this person out, and we're done here." All nodded in agreement again, looking forward toward the admin and living quarters wing of the station. It was dark, a small elevator at the end of the hall being our access point. Everyone filed in, crammed like damn sardines into a small compartment with no idea of where we were destined. As Jepson came in last, he hit the button reading "Admin," prompting the doors to close with a ding. The LED lights above us flickered, casting ominous shadows on the sleek white walls. About 15 seconds into the ride up, the elevator gave out, lights cutting off completely. "Damn it," Stans swore, turning on his flashlight and shining it around. I saw him freeze for a moment as the light glared off the walls, brightly reflected. Only seconds passed before the elevator lights came back on though, and we were moving again. There are 7 of us, Mullins mentioned offhand, voice steady, but with an edge to it. I blinked, adjusting to the lights once more, and did my best to look without moving or causing a scene. From my spot in the back, left, I began taking note, going clockwise. Stens, Mullins, front, Jepson. Jesus Christ, we're not alone in here. There, right between Jepson and Pierce, was a small old woman. Her skin looked like it would tear at the slightest touch, dark veins showing through against bones and atrophied muscles, gaunt face framed by wild gray hair. She was missing her eyes, just like the other one floating around outside. We all froze, making no note of the new party members standing around us, all desperately trying to ignore her to the best of our abilities as the elevator rose further. I could see it in the eyes of the others too. Jepson looked ready to crawl out of his damned skin, standing right next to the old hag. Every second of this elevator ride stretched to years, feeling like we would never be free. My breathing, despite every effort to keep it steady, began coming out in shaky gasps. The tight confines of the elevator were getting to me, and knowing that death was creeping just inches away didn't help anything. Once that door opens, you file out slow, and do not look back once we're out. Understood? Jepson said, all of us giving an affirmative. The hag was just standing there, a low whisper coming from her, but it was too low to be intelligible. The lights flickered again, not quite going out, but still casting eerie shadows over all of us. The door dinged once more, opening wide into a small white hallway. I could feel the tension in my chest as I shuffled past when my turn came, doing my best not to brush against the old woman or pay her any mind. I don't know that I've ever felt more free than walking out of those doors. We just kept moving down the hall, not daring to look back at the still open elevator behind us. I could hear the doors slide close, or at least they start to, before something stops them, opening them back up. It continues like this every few seconds, something keeping the elevator appear and open. Was it the hag? Is she moving out after us? Oh god, she could be right behind me right now, and I can't even confirm without getting killed. Deep breaths. Almost there. Have you seen my son? The voice came from right next to me. Old, raspy, like the speaker hadn't touched water in years. I swear, if I didn't have enough discipline to keep my eyes forward, I would be fucking dead. Fortunately for me, someone else didn't have the same resistance I did. Son of a... Stens barely got the words out before I could hear a pulse firing from his gun, barely scraping my shoulder as they went flying by. The idiot acknowledged it. Warm blood covered me as he was ripped apart, hit flying forward down the hall in front of us. I flinched as the spray of life force drenched my back, squinting to keep it from getting in my eyes. Stens was gone before his hit was able to even hit the ground. Fear in his disembodied eyes ahead of us. We keep moving though, not much else we have a choice in doing. Just pushing further down the hall toward the admin sign at the end. There were various doorways all around us, open for meeting rooms, conferences, or just general presentations, I guess. Not that they were being used for that now. It looked like some of them had been abandoned mid-use, with projectors still running on computers on tables. There's no telling how long they had been like this for, but it was like an eerie snapshot of time right before disaster. A small shadow ran through one of the doors as we passed, getting a reaction out of Pierce and Mullins. Our numbers dropped by 2 as something unseen rips them into the door on either side, separating limb from torso and dragging them into the darkness beyond. Just the slightest interaction with it, the barest sign of acknowledgement, and these things would pounce on us like we were freshly prepared food placed in front of a starving prisoner. A child's laughter echoed from the rooms around, sending a new shiver of terror down my spine. I felt like my feet were anchored to the ground by lightning for a moment, before I forced myself forward again, desperately clawing further along into this hell. Jepson front and I were all that was left, moving through the hallway and following the admin signs. The design of this place was Kubrickian, Just nearly endless halls twisting with rooms full of hell on either side. I think they know that we're here. They must know that whatever veil between us and them is more likely to let them through right now. Screams echo through the hallways intermixed with laughter and shouts. They're trying to break us, make us react. Our lighthouse in the storm was finally ahead. At the end of this labyrinth of halls was a small office room, window plastered off with what looked like aluminum foil and electric tape. Reminded me of those conspiracy theorists you would see in videos back in the 90s, thinking everyone was trying to read their minds with microwaves and shit. The door opened as we got closer, safety beckoning us in. As we ran through, I caught sight of our savior. A woman, probably in her mid-20s, with ratty brown hair and thick glasses. She stood back while we all crashed through the doorway, desperately throwing ourselves against the wall in relief of a safe place. Or what we hoped was a safe place at least. The woman closed the door behind us, sizing us all up and reaching toward a gun on the table. Television monitors flickered from the corner desk nearby, switching between security feeds. It was hard to find a screen that didn't feature a couple of dead, mangled bodies every time it switched views. Some areas featuring mass piles of corpses that were well on their way to rotting. What the hell happened here? Japson got out before she could say anything to us. She practically chuckled at that though, sitting on the table and staring us down instead. Damn ghosts killed everyone. What's it look like? She spat back in a southern drawl. The hell they sent you bastards up here to die for? Well, we were sent to rescue any survivors that were up here. I'm guessing you're it? I asked, taking a step forward. All she did was study me, gazing up and down. I saw her eyes stop where my weapons were, both the knife in my belt and rifle at my side, taking note of the best way to get them from me. She was a survivor, for sure. Only people on this shit show deserving of a rescue died a long time ago. You know where you are, right? Who they sent you up here to rescue? She asked again, still sizing us all up. I moved to the window, tracing my fingers along the long, overlapping rows of electrical tape and aluminum covering the entire frame. She comes over to smack my hand away. They like staring in the windows. Don't mess with that. So what the hell are they? Front asked again, sitting back against the wall and closing his eyes. Ghosts. That's all I've got. She shrugged again, sitting back on the table and pulling out a small notebook, jotting down words with a pen driven through the spiral coil. Alright, I said, holding up a hand. Let me ask a few questions, just so I can, I don't know, piece this crap together. Who are you? My name's Shelly. I was one of their pleasure girls up here. She replies, looking over her notebook at me. How long you been up here, Shelly? I respond, leaning back against the wall. Since I was 8. She says it so casually that it took me by surprise. You're a pleasure girl? At 8? Jesus Christ. Front shook his head, Japson looking like his eyes were going to pop out. Oh honey, that's not the worst thing they did up here. 17 years, and I've seen plenty. She was chuckling at this point, despite our horror. The people up here, they didn't see themselves as people. They were gods, richer than you could ever imagine. But that wasn't enough for them. Since you've been here 17 years, when did all of this start? I asked, trying to keep on track and get my wits about me. My sympathy for the ones that lived up here was already pretty low. But now? Nah, now it's all about getting my ass back to solid earth. The first one started maybe a year ago. Some of the older residents talking about people that weren't there. Then they eventually started appearing to more and more people all around the station. Every time someone took notice of one, that was it, dead on the spot. Shelly was rambling now. Gotta say, it's nice to have real people to talk to again. I was getting a little cooped up. Anyway, yeah, people started dying when they noticed the damn things, even floating outside the station. There were a lot of bodies outside the station, just floating through space. All of those were ghosts? Front spoke now. Heavens no, most of those were living people at one time. See, when people start getting ripped up by ghosts appearing, The others around kind of start losing their minds, started shooting people out of the airlock as some kind of sacrifice to save their own asses. Not that it worked, mind you. Shelly replied, chuckling again. No, most of them realized before long that we were all damned. It was just a matter of who could pretend they weren't there the best. They called for help too, had some experts come up. All of this was hurting my head. Over a year of shit like this going down, and nobody thought to get the hell out of this place? Not that they sound like normal, rational people by any means, but still, it feels like an obvious case of knowing when the hell to get out of a place where you're going to die. She just continued talking. They tried doing some kind of exorcism, a couple of rituals to cleanse the station and all. Poor bastards got torn apart piece by piece. Think the ghosts made sure they would stay alive to feel the pain. Only time I've seen them last that long. She finished scribbling in her notebook now, snapping it back shut. Did anyone mention anything about what caused it? Nobody had any kind of ideas? Jepson asked now. None any of us could agree on. I know all the residents up here were pretty screwed up in the head, so a lot of us figured hell just finally had enough of waiting on them, went ahead and sent a few of their victims to collect, you know, she said, looking to the rest of us. Sounded like as good of an explanation as any. Course, you let hell loose, and it ain't so easy to rein it back in, so most everyone ended up taken down, along with these folks. How the hell did you make it this long? Jepson asked, now looking right at the woman. She certainly looked like she had been through hell, but somehow, here she was, the only survivor standing in front of us. I got real good at going other places, you know, up here. She pointed to her skull now, tapping her temple. Whenever one of them pops into sight, I just go off like I would any other time, until they ain't there anymore. Dissociation. Crude, but if it works, it works. Good thing to take note of. Not like I haven't had my fair share of separation of mind and body during some PTSD episodes. She only smiled at us though, like she was unaware of what she's gone through. The poor girl was obviously broken from her entire time up here, but it ended up saving her life in the end. So we just need to make it back to the ship and get home. There are no other survivors, right? Jepson asked, looking her right in the eyes and nodding as if to get her to say yes. None I know of. No, sir. Shelly responds, shaking her head. The relief that flowed through my body was something I maybe shouldn't be proud of, but spending even more time on this ship was something I wasn't keen on doing. Alright, anything you need to bring with you, go ahead and grab it. Let's get the hell off this can. Jepson nodded, moving forward toward the door. Shelly stood, shoving the notebook into a pocket on her pants. Front got up, making adjustments to his gun before realizing it was useless, taking it off to leave behind. Not like they're going to be affected. Why slow myself down? He said, shrugging to the rest of us. Jepson and I exchanged a look before nodding, taking ours off as well and throwing them on the table. If death comes for us, some shitty taser isn't going to do a whole lot. Let's go then. Jepson opened the door, almost walking right into the thing standing right in front of it on the other side. It was a hulking man, bald, though it was hard to tell with a massive chunk of his skull and skin missing up there. I don't know if it was just first reaction, or if he tried to catch himself, but Jepson simply let out one soft word, before he was separated, something cleaving from his right shoulder all the way down to his groin. Shit. His body fell in a crumple. Maybe the spirit that did it was satisfied with his kill, because it disappeared within moments after the body collapsed. Son of a bitch, I whispered, motioning for Front and Shelly to keep close as we entered the hallway. Shelly, if you can do that thing where you go somewhere else, take hold of my vest and just follow, okay? They have played some tricks on our way in. I'll try, she muttered. I could feel her loop a finger through one of the straps on my bulletproof vest, finally getting some kind of use up here. It honestly makes me want to laugh just thinking about how hilariously underprepared we were coming up here, with almost nothing working out in our favor. The long twisting hallways were the same as on the way in. I did my best to just tunnel vision myself forward, not paying any mind to the laughter and screams coming from the rooms on either side of us. Shadows would dart in between doors like a damn Scooby-Doo chase every so often, trying to make us acknowledge them by nearly running through us. One finally got too close though, ran right through me as I passed in between two doorways leading back to the elevator. Felt like I went into a flash freezer, getting drenched in water before the fans were turned on max, icing me right down where I stood. I did my best not to scream, not to make any kind of sign that I felt the cool passing through my body. That would be the last time I was in one piece if I didn't. I felt her hand on my shoulder, squeezing tightly and gently pushing me forward. Front was behind us, silently whispering for me to keep moving. Come on, little by little, thaw out the ice and get a move on. Just have to get through the elevator and back on the ship. I managed to get through, finding our way back to the lift after a few more minutes. The old hack from before was gone, thank heavens. But Front and I knew what to be on the lookout for. Shelly, if you notice extra people in the elevator, don't mention it, okay? I whispered, trying my best to sound calm. The stars were twinkling out of the huge viewing windows around us as we waited for the elevator doors to open. She only nodded. They like to ride the elevator, I know, was her only response. The bells dinged, opening to reveal two people already standing in the lift, waiting on us. One was mangled, turned completely backwards at the waist, yet standing at attention, spine obviously broken. The second looked like his neck had been yanked by a rope while he was falling at hundreds of miles an hour, barely hanging on and grotesquely stretched out. I could hear Front hold his breath a little, but I simply stared straight ahead. Go somewhere else, anywhere else, and just get on the damned elevator. I stepped in, breathing in a stench of rotten death as I passed near them. Shelly followed, eyes distant and unseeing of what was in front of us. Front was struggling though. He was stiff moving forward, trying his best to ignore the shadows of violent ends standing right in front of us, but unable to reconcile it in his scared mind. He began muttering a prayer under his breath, pleading with a god somewhere back on Earth or further out into the heavens to save him. He made it in regardless, and I managed to push the button for the central atrium. We just have to play it cool, close our eyes until the bell rings, and we can step out of the lift, no problem. As my eyes close, the sleek white of the doors in front of me fades, a dark emptiness taking over. It's almost freeing to not have to worry about what I might see when I open them again. Maybe I just keep them closed the entire way back to the ship. Pardon, do you know when the train arrives? A voice in my ear brings me back to the present. My eyes remain closed, breath catching in my throat as I try to determine it. Not female, definitely not Shelly, and Front wouldn't be asking some nonsense like this. Hell, the voice sounded like 1,000 broken fingernails scraping across the gravel path, not like anyone living. I should open my eyes, just check and make sure everyone else is okay. No, don't open them. Don't dare open your eyes. It's those bastards that were waiting in here, trying to see if I'll acknowledge them. Even opening my eyes might be taken as a sign. Just keep them closed. Straight ahead. Listen for the doors. I walk as fast as I can along the hall without missing a beat, finally out of the elevator. I open my eyes to see that Shelly is still holding onto my vest, while Front is dry heaving against the wall nearby. Through the darkness of the hall that the central atrium looms ahead, our last obstacle before finally reaching the way home. It was empty before. I'm trying to keep my shit together the best I can, but I want to scream just looking at the entrance to the atrium. It's a straight shot through to get to the ship. Probably 200 bodies packed shoulder to shoulder in there, all just milling about aimlessly. Soft whispers floated our way over the crowd. Nonsense by the time they reached us. These were all phantoms, and if we paid the slightest bit of attention to any of them, we would join them. Front. I think Front just kind of broke when he saw that many. Can't blame them really. They ran the entire spectrum of man, women, child, old, young, all suffering some gruesome affliction that put them here. Broken limbs, some completely dismembered or barely hanging on to the original body, were common throughout the room. Some were missing huge parts of their head, brain matter spilling out. That was just what I could see from here. I was trying not to look, not to notice, not to make them aware lest they come down on me like hungry predators starved of a meal. Shelly's hand gripped my shoulder once more, nails digging in under the vest as her anxiety heightened. Before I knew what was happening, Front pulled a knife from his belt, running it across each of his eyes in quick slices. I've got to commend the dedication. But damn if I didn't almost start screaming at him when I saw it. Effectively blind, he dropped the knife and held his hands up, working forward into the crowd. All I could do was watch. He slows down a little before he actually hits the crowd, like when you're worried about hitting a drop-off while swimming at the beach. Then, he just plunged in, desperately making his way through the sea of death with teeth gritted. He made it through a few bodies before coming to a stop, screaming as he stepped through another one. Maybe it was the cold aura they gave off, just how it felt standing near them in the elevator, but passing through them broke him. Despite his inability to see it, he started screaming, hands lunging forward like he was grasping for a far-off shore to stop his drowning. No use. The phantoms took his movements as an acknowledgement, the sea of death roiling as they all lurched forward to rip their reward from his body. Blood sprays into the air as his skull is cracked open, split like an egg, and pulled from either side to fight for control of his quickly stretching spine. Front was gone in moments, pieces scattered to every corner of the atrium as the shades of life began to retreat back to where they originated from. Some disappeared, others stayed. Meanwhile, a few began wandering the atrium, now free of some of their brethren who were packing them in. I let out a deep breath, turning to look at Shelly before making our final trek. "We have to walk through them," I said, looking her directly in the eye to make sure she was there with me. She nodded. "I've done it before. When you touch them though, well, it ain't like just passing through them." She shudders. "It's like you live it." "What happened to them?" "Well, we either do that or we stay right here and starve to death," I said, taking a deep breath. Freedom was so close. A light out of this dark, death-filled can. All that's standing between us and that ship is a sea of the dead. And god damn it, I'm going to cross it. I look at her, giving a nod that she returns. Time to go. I know if I close my eyes, they're just going to find another way at me. I see them all right in front of me, dozens thick along the path to the ship. But there's no other way to get around them. Deep breath, and first step. One foot in front of the other. Shelly with a tight hand on my shoulder as I guide us toward the goal. Before long, I pass through the first phantom, giving it no mind as the cold overtakes me. It's empty, and there's a sudden hollow pit in my chest as they hit me. From the corner of my eye, I see them. A man around my age, standing there. A huge hole was blown through his chest. I swear, it almost felt like I could feel the wound coming through my own body. A huge round of munitions punching through me in an all too familiar desert setting. As soon as I saw it, the vision was over, leaving that hollow pit of despair behind for me to carry forward. Every person I stepped through added to that feeling. The sheer weight of existence became overbearing, and I don't know how long I've been going through the Dead Sea at this point. My dread was a physical weight holding me down, making my footsteps drag the boulders like every twitch of muscle. I feel so weak, like I'm going to just fall over and die at any moment, a dead body in this ocean of phantoms. How easy would it be for me to turn back now? Just take a few steps back and rest at the elevator hallway. Give this a try later, see if the phantoms thin out. Or I could just look one of them right in the eye. That would end it all fast enough, and make damn sure that I didn't keep feeling this absolute loathing for life that had settled into the forefront of my thoughts. More visions battered me, mentally and physically. I was a woman beaten to death by someone she loved. I'm a teenager being hit head-on by a car. An older man dying of a heart attack in the middle of his office. Supervisor screaming as everyone just chatters on phones around me. Boom. A shot to the head from an overeager hunter ends my life. Just 12 years old. Water pressing in from all sides. But my small limbs aren't developed enough to fight back against the strong hand holding me under. 10 men hold me down, one beating me into the void of death as the others take advantage. Every single body I pass through shows me exactly how they died, mired in tragedy and violence, while I feel every last ounce of pain, anger and sorrow they did at the time. I understand why they do it now. Why they're here? Still no idea about that. But I understand. When you're someone going through all of this violence on the way out, all you want is for someone to notice, to say something. Just one person to step in and stop what's happening. Now that they're already dead, what good does noticing them do other than instill anger? It was too late now. Anyway, I'm a wife beaten to death by a drunken husband, a young girl left to starve by neglectful parents, an old man locked away rather than cared for as dementia took over. Each life just reinforced my feelings that it was better to give up. Every spirit was closing in on me even as I stared forward, desperately trying to purge my mind of everything around me. Shelly was still holding tight to my shoulder. If I give up, she's just going to be left here, stuck in the middle until the ship leaves, or they tear her apart. The poor girl had already survived enough. She shouldn't have to cut it short by me being a chicken shit here. I pushed through, seeing specters on every side pushing forward, desperately trying for my attention. For a second, I can swear they're coming down from above me, desperate to take whatever little bit of attention I would give them and use it to rip me to shreds. We're free suddenly. No more phantoms. No more ghosts. The oppressive, hollow feeling from moments before was still there, but finally ebbing away bit by bit. We had crossed the river of the dead, and our ferry back to the world of the living was shining up ahead. Flickering lights from up ahead told me we were close. I grabbed Shelly's arm, pulling her as I sped up toward the airlock where the ship was docked. Before long, we hit the hatch, banging on it to be let in by whoever was still on board. After a moment, it hisses open. 2 of the soldiers who had left earlier standing on either side, gun ready to fire if need be. The next few minutes are a blur, but I remember hitting the button to close the doors and screaming for the pilot to fly. The remaining soldiers had plenty of questions about where the others were, but I told them we just needed to get the hell out of there. Naturally, they didn't just accept that, so I had to tell them that everyone else was fucking dead to get them to move. Bastards sat back here comfortable while I saw everyone get ripped to shreds and had the fucking audacity to question if I was telling the truth. Thankfully, they were more inclined to believe Shelly, and she gave them the rundown of what our return trip entailed. As we finally put that cursed place behind us, Outpost Stix faded away as we began our flight back to Earth, the only survivor in our protection now. I don't really care what's waiting for us back on Earth at this point. Whatever they want to give me for doing this ain't fucking enough, especially knowing the kind of people they sent us there to rescue now. God, who's even going to believe me about what happened up here? Not like they weren't counting on that when they recruited us. A body floats past the window as I gaze out, staring off toward the sun, far, far in the distance. I notice it wave at me, smiling through decaying teeth, crumbling off into the void of space. Don't think I'm going to pay it any mind. Maybe. If I ignore it, it won't follow us back.